on the and I'm going to focus on the commercial side because tomorrow you have a whole presentation on MIPS and the government side. So I'm going to focus on the commercial side of it. And as you know, every insurance company is licensed in the state where they are. And so they do different things in different states and in different parts of the country. So I'm going to give you examples that I've seen throughout the country, and they may be doing it where you are and they may not. Where we really see more uniformity nationwide is with the Blue Crosses, because every state has their own Blue Cross. New York has 3 Blue Crosses, but they have this umbrella association, which tells them what's going on and they follow it. And so you get very little variation when you cross state lines with Blue Cross, with how they're doing things. But what I tell physicians and hospitals to do is negotiate the best rates you can get and then start talking about these quality programs where you can gain additional money. And some of them look at things that need improvement. Some of them, like Blue Cross, will say, well, you're already performing at 95%, so why should we pay you for that? And they don't look at, well, I'm already achieving a high level. They just look at, I don't want to pay you for that. And so some of you may have different things and y'all want to bring them up on some of the ways that you're getting those extra dollars in there. But pretty much everybody is standard across the board unless you have the market power like Memorial Hermann does in the Houston market, where they have about 3,000 physicians that they're contracting for. You're going to get the same rate. There's not a flexibility, and you're going to have to get it on shared risk, on some sort of pay for performance, that type of thing. So we're going to start out talking a little bit about quality. And in 1998, we got the Leapfrog Group. The Leapfrog Group is a group of businesses that came together and they said, we're going to pay for value and we want to grade hospitals. And they grade you A, B, C, D, and F. And they look at safety and quality. And it comes out once a year and it gets published in the newspaper. And, you get hospitals that get A's and then you get hospitals that get F's. So it not only affects what you get paid, it affects who's going to go there. And it affects the volumes because, as you know, your reimbursement is a function of the mayum and the rate that you get paid. And commercials always pay higher than Medicare, so you want as many commercial payors as you can get to maximize it. But the Leapfrog Group, not all hospitals participate in it. Most of them do. From pressure, there's no requirement that they do. And a lot of the payors, like Aetna, that's one of the factors they look at in bonusing a hospital is were you A, B, C, D, or F? And that affects, and if you're an F, you're not going to have a contract. Then what Georgia referred to on the medical errors, the Institute of Medicine in 1999, they came out with, at that point in time, there was 100,000 people who died from preventable medical errors. As Georgia said, now we're up to 200,000. So there's a big push on this. This is just a diagram that shows you quality management and how everything interacts on it. Pay for performance. It's paying physicians and paying hospitals too for quality, and it's brought up, it's quality as they define it. I find it very interesting that patient satisfaction is a quality indicator. Me personally, if somebody's got me cut open and they got their hands inside me, I'm not sitting there thinking about patient satisfaction and whether they have a good personality or not. And so we did studies, and, you know, patient satisfaction has a lot to do with whether the physician is nice to you and whether you get a good parking place and whether it's easy to get an appointment, as opposed to the really quality of the medicine. So you're very right that there are a lot of factors that they measure that aren't necessarily cost-effective or quality indicators. But that's what we have now, and hopefully one of the things you're going to have this afternoon is clinical integration, and where it talks about the part of being clinically integrated is physician participation, and it's the physicians who define the protocols and the physicians who are making this decision. So we're moving toward not a bunch of bureaucrats defining what quality is and what the acceptable benchmarks are, but getting the people who know involved in doing that. Okay, we started out with measuring healthcare quality, which came to pay for performance, which should result in value-based. But the top is what's most important. How correctly are you measuring it? Are you looking at the right measures? And at this point in time, there are a lot of questions about the top line. Okay, this comes about from the employer. You know, everybody talks about CMS and the regulations that CMS comes out with, and as we talk about micro hospitals, I was just talking during the break about how on micro hospitals, CMS came out with a regulation at the end of October in 2017 that basically stopped the development or really slowed it down of micro hospitals. And micro hospitals are very good for rural areas, but that wasn't where they were being developed. They're being developed in high-income suburbs, and therefore the terminology I use is CMS takes an axe when you need a scalpel to fix things. That's what they have historically done. But the employers are really driving it now. Probably 80 to 85% of what you think are commercial business is really self-insured employers who come under ERISA, which is a pension act that in a circuit court decision got applied to health care, which basically says that if you're self-insured, you go by the federal law instead of the state law, which means they can define their benefit package any way they want to define their benefit package. And employers started looking at how much their health care was costing, and instead of the HR department running health care in an employer now, it's the CFO running it. And we're seeing all sorts of things like narrow networks. And in Houston, the city of Houston about 5 years ago went to a narrow network with Memorial Hermann because their healthcare costs were out of control. They saved like $80 million in healthcare costs. It wasn't because they went to a narrow network. It was because they financially incentivized their employees to participate in wellness programs. But the Houston Chronicle wrote articles, they went to a narrow network, they saved $80 million, so now everybody wants a narrow network. When it's a wellness program, it was so successful they extended it from their employees to their dependents. And those big costs, that's great savers, as well as pharmacy benefit management. That's the next thing that folks on. But employers drive a lot of the changes. It's not just because Medicare passed a regulation. The employers do a lot of it. And they basically began to say, I'm going to pay for value. I'm going to pay for what it's worth. And now we're going to define what value is. Some of it they got right. A lot of it they've gotten wrong on what those measures are. And so the federal government has gotten into it with the value-based payment modifier, with macro, with MIPS, before that with PQRS. And we're not gonna really focus on that because, like I said, you've got a whole hour on that tomorrow. And so we're not gonna really get into what the government program is. So, United Healthcare. Now, most of these companies, like Blue Cross and Aetna and Cigna and United Healthcare, you have a contract with them, and they send you a check, and they do the network management and customer service and all of that. But that check is coming on an account for the employer. So what they are is they're the third-party administrator, or for self-insured, we call it ASO, Administrative Service Organizations. So they don't have the risk. They're not writing the rules. The employer is writing the rules. So, and most of their business is self-insured. And so United Healthcare, in their value-based contracting, they're looking at what they're going to pay based upon efficiency and quality performance measures. And they have a profile tied to your NPI for every physician. And they go in there and they look at what they consider to be quality indicators and what they want you to do. And what they then do is, in your contract, they will say, if you improve this, if you improve that, I'm going to give you a specific example later on when we get to the examples, then we will pay you more. And they will bonus you based upon that. Okay. Quality, outcomes and process, data reporting capabilities, care coordination, we're going to talk about a specific program for that, and then financial results. And that's the big thing they care about, are the financial results. And that's why they dictate where you can deliver care. And we'll talk in a few minutes about a United Healthcare program where they're dictating where the care can be delivered. And the reason they're doing that is, over the past decade, what the employers have looked at, and therefore what the insurance companies have looked at, is let's push more cost sharing onto the patient, so that the patient will be more selective in where they go and where they have the care provided. And out-of-network used to be a really big thing, because out-of-network is based upon what your charges are. So let's say that you have a contract with an ambulatory surgery center, has a contract with the insurance company to pay them 125% of Medicare. That's what they get paid if they're in network, if they have a contract. If they're out of network, then they get paid, in most cases, on a 60-40 basis. The insurance company pays 60%, the patient pays 40% of charges. So if your charges are 400% of Medicare, 60% of that's 240% of Medicare. So if you're the insurance company or the employer and you're paying the bill, you want to pay 125% of Medicare, not 240% of Medicare. So in order to force their employees in network, they have gone to either the narrow network that I talked about, where you have no coverage out of network, or they've dictated where you can get that care, either in a physician office, in an ASC, as opposed to a hospital outpatient. So that's where they're looking at the financial results. It's in the cost sharing, because the patients complain about that. If they have to pay more money on that, if it's a percentage of the charge, they complain about it. Now, a lot of people try to say, okay, well, I'm not really going to collect from you. You're supposed to pay 40% of charges, but wink, wink, nod, nod, I'm going to send you 3 bills, and then I'm never going to make any effort to collect. That's illegal. And you get caught, you know, they quit paying you. Or you go to court, like Forest Park Medical Center in Dallas, there 21 physicians and executives charged federal indictment I think 9 of them up to date have pled guilty. The other are on trial right now. The people who pled guilty have 10-year prison sentences for being cooperating witnesses. So, you know, you can't do that. Okay, we talked about this before. This is on the government side. We're not going to be doing that. We're focusing on commercial.
I'm gonna sign up for the MBA program.
They could go there. Chuck Person, yeah. They could go, yeah, put them on college, be a college coach like the guy at LSU or Chuck Person at Auburn, yeah, could do that. Okay, one of the guys on trial is a real good friend of mine. And he says he's innocent, but sadly, I believe he's guilty because he lives way beyond his means. So I believe, you know, I mean, not that I want him to go to prison. I really don't, because he won't survive. But I think he probably is guilty, and he's probably going to get convicted. Okay, Bridges to Excellence. Again, this came from the employer side, and it's basically a not-for-profit organization, and it looks at clinical outcomes. It looks like at things like, for the diabetic patient, did you do quarterly A1Cs? Did you give the heart patient beta blockers? Do you do certain things? And the way it works is that they have these clinical indicators, not for every specialty. They have them for primary care, for cardiology, for diabetes, and I believe asthma. And if you, to become Bridges to Excellence certified, what you do is you pull a random sample of claims, 25 claims per doctor, and you go in and you look at the list of indicators, and if you did 6 of 10 on those 25 randomly sample of patients, then what you're going to get is you're going to be Bridges to Excellence certified for 2 years. You have to do this every 2 years. And however, even when you have electronic medical records, you scan in imaging, you scan in lab. So you can't write the program and extract all the things you need out of that medical record. And it's really difficult for small practices because you don't have the staff to go do this, even though some of your payors are going to pay you extra per patient on this. And so for the past 6 or 8 years, the Harris County Medical Society, which is the largest county medical society in the country, it's Houston, with my graduate students, I have given them 3 graduate interns every semester, and they send them out to the practices to dig out the data that you can't pull out of the medical record electronically, so that we can get those doctors Bridges to Excellence certified. Now, if you live in a large city and you have a university there or you have a community college, a lot of people don't know about the free labor you can get out of those people. And it really, and I'm talking to Randy about doing it with SMA, because what happens is everybody wants to do an internship. And an internship, you work 150 hours a semester, which is about 8 to 10 hours a week. And it's free labor. It benefits you in that you can put them on a project and they can do it and give you that extra labor. It benefits the student because they don't have experience, and it gets them experience and it helps them get a job. So it's a win-win on both sides. And the way our program works is the faculty screens the students, and we rank them 1 through 5, and you have to be ranked a 4 to go, be sent on an internship. So they're not just sending you en masse anybody who wants an internship. You're getting good students who can come out there, and if you have some project where you need leg work done, it can't be, I need you to Xerox 1,000 copies of this, but something, you know, on that, you get a junior or senior in college, or in our case, we're sending graduate students in healthcare administration. And it's a good way to get some extra bodies to do that. So Bridges to Excellence doesn't pay you. who pays you, some of the payors use it. For Blue Cross of Texas, for diabetes, you get $150 per patient attributed to that practice. For cardiac, it's $100, and for asthma, it's $100. Now, if you're a primary care, you're an internal medicine doc, and you have, say, 300 heart patients, that doesn't mean the money's necessarily going to go to you. They attribute the patient to the physician that they see the most. So that if they go to the internal medicine doc once a year, go to their cardiologist 4 times a year, the cardiologist gets the money. And we have a deal with Blue Cross where we call Blue Cross and we say, this is my NPI, and I say, how many diabetes patients are attributable to me? How many cardiac patients? How many asthma? And they tell me. And if it ends up I only have 25, it's not worth going through this. If they tell me I have 200 or 400, it's worth doing it. And as I said before, Blue Cross follows what the umbrella organization does. So most states, Blue Cross has some sort of program where you get paid on bridges to excellence. And this is just money on top of it. You still get paid whatever your contract rate is, that type of thing. And so if you're a cardiologist or an endocrinologist, you know, or a pulmonologist or allergist or a primary care, you ought to check into it and see if you can get this extra money and see if it's worthwhile for you to do this. And again, it's for 2 years, so you do 25 patients, and for 2 years you get this extra money. And Aetna does the teacher retirement system, which is all the public school systems and all the retired teachers in Texas. They pay it for diabetes care an extra $100 on there. So you need to check with your payers and see. And here's just some of the things that they look at when they're for diabetes care for Bridges to Excellence. Again, y'all got these PowerPoints, and these are just, you have to basically hit 6 of them, and you can, on 25 random sample patients. Okay, patient-centered medical home. This applies to primary care physicians. If you're a patient-centered medical home, you provide increased services. For example, access, same-day appointments, prevention and wellness. And some payers pay extra for this. For example, Aetna will pay 15 to 20% higher rates to primary care practices that are classified as patient-centered medical homes. And so to be a medical center home, you have to have policies and procedures. At this point, they're not requiring you to prove that you're doing any of this. They ultimately will require you to prove that you're doing this. But initially, you just have to certify that you have policies and procedures for a patient-centered medical home. And I had this large primary care practice, it's about 40 primary care physicians, and they had a patient-centered medical home contract on the table for 2 years before I stopped working for them. Never signed it because the practice administrator was so busy going to meetings and doing deals that he didn't have time to write the policies and procedures. And I kept saying, you can buy them from Medical Group Management Association for $150. Why don't you just go buy them? You know, you don't have to write these. And the owner of the practice, the hospital had bought the practice, and they were having to ante up hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars a month because their cash inflow was less than their cost of the practice. And this guy was too busy to sign this contract. And so he got fired. Okay. What NCQA certifies patient-centered medical homes. And this is what they say you have to have: access during office hours, use data for population management, care management, support self-care process, referral tracking and follow-up, and implement continuous quality improvement. And so those are the things that you have the policies and procedures, and they're gonna come in and start auditing it to make sure you do it. But this is a way for primary care doctors to negotiate the best deal and then say, but what if I'm a patient-centered medical home? You know, do you have a program for that? What United Healthcare does is they have copay differentials. What they say is, as I said earlier, you want commercial patients because they pay higher than what Medicare pays. May not be a lot higher, but they pay higher. So how do you get them? Well, you get basically, if the copay, instead of being $40 to go to a urologist, it's only $25 if you go to these specific ones that they designate. And what are they looking for, the lower copay? You prescribe generics. Do generics give you better quality of care? No, but they cost less. So there's a big question about, is it quality or is it cost? The managed care company's interested in cost. You manage the physician costs, you use ambulatory surgery centers and procedure suites as opposed to hospital outpatient. You know, the hospitals for outpatient, and Lori will talk about this, she's going to talk about hospital outpatient departments, which are hospital-owned outpatient departments. When they started in 2000 paying hospitals based upon APCs, which is a prospective payment system. It's an all-inclusive rate. It's a case rate for outpatient procedures. Then in 2008, they began to phase it in for ambulatory surgery centers. And when they did that, in 2008, when they began phasing it in, completed in 2011, ambulatory surgery centers were to get paid 65% of what a hospital outpatient department got paid. So, you know, you're saving 35%. You know, most ophthalmology can be done in an ASC or a procedure suite. Now we're seeing pacemakers being done in ASCs. We're seeing spine procedures done in ASCs. So a lot of procedures can be done either in a hospital or in an ASC. I ran the numbers in 2018, and based upon Medicare rates, ASCs are only getting paid 50% of what a hospital outpatient rate is. What's happened is over the years from 2011 to 2018, the increases to hospitals were larger than the increases to ASCs. If you're an ambulatory surgery center, you're getting paid anywhere from 114% to 125 or 30% of Medicare. If you're a hospital, you're getting paid 165 to 235% of Medicare. So on the commercial side, we're talking about an ASC, or we're talking about a hospital outpatient department getting paid 3 to 4 times what an ASC gets paid. Now, the insurance company wants to drive you to the lowest level of acceptable care, so it's less for them. But on the patient side, most insurance is 80-20. The patient pays 20%. So their 20% is 4 times higher if they do it out in a hospital department as opposed to an ASC. So that's why they're talking about using the site location, the facility, the site of service. Manage ancillary costs. Those are the things that they're looking at, that they're going to give you lower copays. They're going to drive you business on the commercial side so that you have a higher percentage of commercial patients paying you more. But you can see every one of those are tied to their having lower cost and to the patient's portion being a lower rate. What they did in 2014 is they came out with a directive that said they'd list all the GI procedures, but almost every GI procedure has to be done either in an ASC or in a procedure suite. They will not pay for them in a hospital outpatient. So that, you're not getting more money for doing that, they're just disallowing it, again, to save them money. And their reasoning for it, when you talk to them about why are you doing this, because I had a hospital client that had huge endo suites in their hospital, and this is a major thing for them. They're doing it to benefit their patients, so the patient cost sharing portion is less. Okay, hospital bonus programs. Now, a lot of the major payors, Aetna is specifically one of them, but all of them are doing it, is they're saying to the hospital, we'll negotiate a rate with you, and then we'll pay you on a quarterly basis extra up to 5 to 8% more than what you're getting paid based upon your rate, your fee schedule, based upon a number of different metrics, and they take each one of these and assign points to it to come up with what you get. And it can be full risk where you're managing it against a budget, so they say, okay, this is what we paid you last year based upon this number of patients. Next year, this current year, we're going to increase that by 4%, 4 or 5%. But if you come in below that, we'll share the savings with you. You have no downside risk, you only have upside risk. We'll share it that way. They have a shared saving program. If you save that money, some of that goes to the physicians, because we all know hospitals don't admit patients, hospitals don't discharge patients, hospitals don't do procedures, so you've got to share part of this with your physicians. And then the one we just talked about, paying them based upon certain measures. And what they're doing is they're not doing new data collection. They're measures you're already collecting. I'm going to give you a list of some of the things they do. They're things you're already collecting. They're just looking at them. And they know, they have all the data on the hospitals, all the data on you. They know what the hospital's currently doing. And so they're looking, you get more points based upon what the worst performing you are in an area. They want a greater improvement. They're going to assign more points to that. So they look at hospital-based physician network participation. I mean, it's all over the news, it's all over the TV about the balanced billing, especially with the ER, where a patient goes to an in-network hospital and then they get these huge bills because the ER physicians are not in network. And, you know, every state is looking at passing laws to stop the balanced billing. And the hospitals say it's not our fault. We encourage them to participate, but they don't work employed by us. We can't force them to. And you know, I saw an article last week about a woman who had an appendectomy. She called the hospital before she went there. She asked them several times while she was there, and she still got this big bill. It's in California, and now they've turned it over to a collection agency. They put a lien against her house. She's got to pay this balanced bill. So the managed care companies, because the employers are pushing it, because their employees are pushing it, is get all the hospital-based physicians in network. If you are a new hospital and it's a new contract, they will not contract with you unless all your hospital-based physicians are in network. So this is ER, anesthesia, pathology, radiology, your intensivist, you know, the hospitalist, it's the neonatologist. It's all of those have to be in network for a new hospital, or they won't contract with you. But yeah, but what I'm telling you, I even have this policy that I give to out-of-network facilities and out-of-network physicians, because where you're really running into danger there if you're out-of-network is all these narrow networks. And what happens there when there is no coverage out of network, then you got to chase that patient for the full amount. And so what I do is I tell them to look at their gross collection ratio. That's of what you charge, how much are you collecting. And when that basically a hospital generally has a for-profit hospital generally has a gross collection ratio of 25%. I mean, your charges, nobody pays charges. And so if you're out of network, the higher the better. We had one in Houston who, it was 1,000% of Medicare. That's what they were charging out of network because you get a percent of charges. So you look at your gross collection ratio. And when it starts going down, that's when you look at getting in network. Because what you're really concerned about in your risk is, what if everybody goes to narrow network? And I'm not getting anything from the insurance company. And because insurance companies, if you don't get on their radar, then they're not going to come after you. I got one ASC who they're out of network and they waive it all the time. I got one infusion center that does that. But if you have huge amounts and you're getting on there, that's when they come after you. You're not always going to come. But you won't, to me, the bigger risk is everybody gets a narrow network and no out-of-network coverage, and you're not getting anything. And you want to make that decision when you get to that point before, oh no, I can't pay my employees. What am I going to do? And so, or I tell them too to monitor how many people call and ask them. Right. You know, because you've got a lot of risk in there. And yes, the insurance company is the one who is enforcing it, but it is the employer who's doing it. And they'll say to you, well, you know, you're right, but we already settled with the employer. They're self-insured. You got to go chase the employer. And that's the last thing you want to be doing is chasing the employer on it. But I had this hospital that they had been in an area where there weren't a lot of other hospitals. And so they had these old contracts that were percent of charges contracts. So these HOPD, these ASCs went there, and imaging centers and all these people became HOPDs to take advantage of these huge contracts. And so the employer said they went down there. Now they print out, the CFO gets a printout of all the claims they pay. And so they had a claim, and it was like, you know, $60,000 for a minor sinus surgery and all this. And so they said, we're not paying that, you know, you've got to redo the contract. And they said, yeah, but you only got 2 or 3 claims. And they say, the CFO, the employer says, I don't care. I'm not paying 1 claim for that. And so they're pressuring them to get that. And so it's a big problem. And the reason it's getting publicity is because of the patient. And the patients are the ones who are screaming about it. And especially out in California, there's one collection company that had done this woman, and they put liens on, I think, like 200 people's houses. So they can't sell their house until they pay those bills. And so, you know, it gets a lot of publicity. It's not, patient-wise, that many patients that this is happening to. And I understand.
The system should be they should be using the same propaganda that's being used against the physicians who are.
What they should be doing is going to the payor and saying, you want me in your network because maybe I'm a sole community provider, or maybe because I'm the preferred hospital, or for whatever reason, you got to pay my hospital-based physicians more. I mean, they should be bringing pressure on the managed care companies to help their hospital-based physicians. But the hospitals are just saying, whoa, it's not me, and they're hands off. But it's not, I mean, the insurance companies are doing what their customer, the employer, wants them to do. the hospital says, oh, it's not me, and all the negative publicity is falling on the hospital-based physicians. You're right about that. And so you've got to find a way, and one of the ways may be, and we've seen this before with anesthesia, and we've seen it before with ER docs, being based upon patient mix, where the hospital pays the ER docs and the anesthesiologist a stipend to make up for that. And maybe that's what maybe that's what the hospital should be doing. They should be compensating them for it because, let me finish the point and then I'll get to you. Because the thing is, and I don't know if y'all realize this, probably you do, but in every state there is a criminal victims fund. And so everybody who gets convicted, they have to pay a big fine. That goes into a criminal victims fund. So if someone comes to the ER because they're a stabbing victim, the hospital gets paid out of that criminal victims fund. You as a physician attendant, you don't get anything because they're indigent, or if they are indigent, that type of thing. Also, if you treat a disproportionate number of Medicare, Medicaid patients, and you offer maternity services, they get paid what are called dispro funds. So they're getting money where you, the physician, are getting nothing. They have money where they can pay the stipend, where they can subsidize the physicians. So what they need to do is pressure the insurance company. You want me in there, my ER docs are telling me you're offering them something completely unreasonable because you're an ER doc. You can't, because of the EMTALA, you can't say, hey, I'm not treating you because you don't have insurance. So I've got to charge more, get paid more from the insurance company to subsidize for my bad payor mix for all these people who are indigent. And so, there are a lot of cases to be made, and the hospital can come and help make those arguments. Plus, they've got two pots of money, dispro money, and they've got the Criminal Victims Fund. And if it's a hospital district, in Texas, our legislature in their infinite wisdom 25 years ago said, oh, indigent people aren't our responsibility, they're the county's responsibility, and they passed a law to that effect. And then say, now, county, you can create a hospital district to tax your citizenry to pay for indigent care. So almost every county did that. So in those counties, they got three sources of funds that they can use to pay those doctors. And if you're a hospital-based physician, unlike a private practice physician, you cannot change your payor mix. You have to treat everybody regardless of the ability to pay. And so I agree with you, and that's the only solution I see to it. But the problem is that you only have a network in that limited area where you are. So that prohibits you for going after contracts with national employers, the big employers, where the risk is lower. I mean, you can get contracts with the city government, the county government, the school district, those people, but get the Dow Chemicals and the Exxon Mobils, you can't get them because you can't service all of that. And the second problem with that is you end up negotiating against yourself because employers decide who's going to get the insurance contract based upon cheapest price. And so you got to drive down what you're getting as a hospital or drive down what you're paying your physicians. So it's it is a strategy, and we saw the strategy back in the 90s, and a lot of people got out of that business. They're coming back and getting into it again, especially the ones who have ACOs or clinically integrated networks where they have the infrastructure in there. But that is one thing that that you can do. But they're looking at the hospital-based physician participation, readmission rates, you're already reporting that. Average length of stay, you're already reporting. Adverse events, you're already reporting. HCAP scores, you're reporting those to CMS. And leapfrog scores. As I said earlier, not everybody participates in leapfrog. So what they do is they say, you know, we won't consider that a factor if you don't participate in it. But they look at those, they assign points, so that if you were a leapfrog and you were a C, you get more points if you jump from a C to an A, because that's something you really want to improve. If you have 100% or 90% hospital-based physician participation, you're going to get fewer points for that because you're already almost where they want you to be. So that's how they set it up. ASCs, what we're seeing, ASCs historically were out of network. Now this isn't an issue for you if you're a CON state, because the hospitals have all the ASCs. But they were out of network. They were owned by physicians. They were out of network. You're seeing the narrow networks, the pressure to get in network. So that now they're all trying to get in network. I talked to Blue Cross last week, Blue Cross of Texas. They, in the past year, I've got 3 ASCs I'm working on. In the past year, we've had 4 different contractors. They contract statewide for ASCs. When I talked to Shelley, she said, well, I've got 52 ASCs wanting contracts on my desk today. I convinced her to move my 3 ASCs to the top. And so we're getting there, because I know a lot of people at Blue Cross. But, I mean, that's a lot of people trying to get in net. All the out of network are trying to get in network because they're losing patients. So they say if your anesthesiologists aren't contracted, we're going to pay you, ASC, 20% less on the facility rate. And I've had a lot of ASCs deal with this. A lot of them changed their anesthesia groups. One said, I'm staying out of network. I'm not changing my anesthesia group. So this is an issue. For hospitals, they're saying if your anesthesiologists aren't in network, you already have a contract with them, you're doing a new contract, then we're lowering what we're paying you facility, you're paying you hospital 2 to 3%. So they're trying to bring financial pressure on the facilities to say to the anesthesiologists, get in network. And pressure them to, or you're going to lose the contract because we're losing money. For anesthesiologists, when you're contracting, what we're seeing on the large national, the Napas, the Sheratons, the big push has been to have national anesthesia groups. And they're buying up all of these smaller anesthesia groups. And this has been going on for what, 3 to 5 years? And so what they're saying is they're demanding that they get paid $125 to $150 per 15-minute unit. And they bought up everybody in certain markets, so you don't have a big choice. So they're paying it. But the managed care organizations want to keep as many people private as possible because they're paying the private anesthesiologist $85 to $95 an hour, which to the anesthesiologist, that's about what you're getting even in the big groups, because the big group is taking the money, most of the money off the top. So what they're doing is they're saying, anesthesiology group, we'll pay you $85 to $95 per 15-minute unit, as long as you stay private. If during the term of this contract, which for everybody except Blue Cross is generally a 3-year contract, Blue Cross is their 1-year contract, but on these, Blue Cross is either demanding a 2 or 3-year contract. If you sell to the national group within that contract term, then we're calling back the extra money we paid you. So that's what they're doing. And the reason they're doing that is, I mean, you quickly figure out if what the issue is. And so you say, I'm going to stay private and that's what they did to begin with. They said, I'm gonna stay private, so you pay me that, and they'd say, okay, and then 6 months later, they'd sell to the big group. So now, the managed care companies have caught on, and they're saying, okay, I'll give you that rate, but if you go in network, I'll claw it back. So, I mean, everybody learns as you go through the process.
In
Yeah.
Alabama, that's actually $55 to $60 per unit.
Well, that's what they're getting unless you get one of these deals. Yeah, that's the rate people are generally getting. But I'm getting, for the anesthesiologist, $85 to $95 a unit for the private anesthesiologist, whereas, you're right, 3 years ago, it would be $55 to $65 a unit.
So that-
A bigger problem is the Blue Cross having 85% of the market. That's a much bigger problem than what Aetna's doing. One thing that I didn't put in here is capitation. And we are beginning to see capitation. This is the end. Maybe that's just a blank one because that's not the end of my presentation. One of the things that I didn't put in there is capitation. We're beginning to see capitation come back with the Medicare Advantage product. And like HealthSpring and WellCare. And the thing about capitation is really basic and very simple. It is the unit rate times utilization. And you know what the unit rate should be, or what what an office visit rate should be, because you know what your contracts are and what the market is. Your big issue is you don't know utilization. And that's where you can really get killed on capitation, because you don't know the utilization rate. But in these Medicare Advantage products, some of them, like HealthSpring, have pretty stable populations, and they can give you pretty good data on it. And the thing is, with the capitation that you have to be concerned about is you shouldn't take risks for things you can't control. So I have a client where we did, it's an oncology practice. So, we can control our costs. We've got excellent data out of HealthSprings. We know exactly what the utilization is going to be. And even if you didn't, you could go with a market utilization from the American Cancer Society registry. But what you can't control is the infusion drugs. So what we did is we did a contract with 2 rates. One for the professional component and one for the infusion drugs. The infusion drugs to be reviewed every 60 days, every 6 months. Because pharmaceuticals have gone up astronomically and you have no control over that. So the big thing about capitation is getting good utilization numbers. So if a payer wants you to do capitation, they better share data with you, give you the data, and then look at things you can't control and share the risk. Take risks for what you can control. But we're seeing, again, mainly with the Medicare Advantage product, because they have high utilization in orthopedics and oncology and things like that, where you have high enough numbers to where you can capitate it. HOPDs, hospital outpatient departments. We talked about that before, and I said Laura's going to talk about it tomorrow. In 2005, CMS said, if you are classified existing as an HOPD, you stay an HOPD and you get paid hospital rates. If you are a new one, after November of 2015, they put it the date they passed the law or issued the regulation. It's that specific date. There's not a phase-in period. It's that specific date. After that date, you have to be basically on the campus of the hospital for Medicare, Medicaid to be an HOPD and to get that additional reimbursement. HOPDs can be clinics, in which case you, the physician, get paid less on that piece of it, but you don't have the overhead. The hospital's absorbing the overhead, so you make out better on the net side of it. Imaging centers, back in, was it 2007, Medicare, as I said before, takes a hatchet instead of a scalpel. Imaging center costs had gone up exponentially because all of the imaging equipment people, the GEs and those guys and Siemens had come around and said, oh, physicians, you need more money. Put a MRI in your office. Guess what happened? Every patient got a MRI. You had to be able to pay the lease payments on the MRI. And so CMS just went crazy. So they cut outpatient imaging a third. Commercial went in and reinstituted pre-certification for imaging and got rid of the excess utilization, which was a problem, not what the rate they were paying was the problem. So if you're a freestanding imaging center, your reimbursement went down a third for the Medicare, Medicaid. So there was a big imaging center company, River Oaks Imaging in Houston, about 12 to 13 imaging centers. Memorial Hermann bought them, made them HOPDs, and they were already getting paid more because they were hospital outpatient departments, and now they didn't take that 1/3 hit. So, because it didn't affect hospital outpatient departments, only affected freestanding imaging. So you've got a lot of those. You've got physical therapy. I mean, there's a whole list of designated health services. Just about everything can become a hospital outpatient department. But there are all sorts of rules. For Medicare, you had to be within 35 miles of the mothership. In Texas, because we have to be different, it's 30 miles. And so, I mean, you got to check your state and see what it was. But that's what they did. But that's not what the managed care companies did, because the patients liked ambulatory surgery centers. They liked not having to go to the hospital and the parking issues and getting in the hospital and going around and finding the outpatients. They didn't like that. They liked just driving up to the front, going in, getting the procedure done, and leaving. So the managed care companies they'll let you be an HOPD and let you get hospital rates. They didn't cut back on that. One thing on the physician clinics that CMS did, if you're a physician-owned clinic and you're in the MOB at the hospital, and let's say you're suite 400, and you move to suite 800, you lose it. It doesn't apply if you just change addresses, even though you're the same clinic. You lose the HOPD designation for moving across the hall or upstairs. Okay, they're paying the hospital rates, which is a huge advantage. What they're doing, though, is you have an existing contract with, say, Blue Cross, and you're an ASC, you can become an HOPD. Let's say we're in month, exact numbers I can do. Say we're in month 10 of a 36-month contract. You can become an HOPD in month 10, but you don't get the step up in rates till month 37, till that contract's over. You don't get the immediate step up in rates on there. And I had I'd call it a rural area, not a rural area, but a smaller area of Texas, and they were getting in network. And I'd gotten them in network with Aetna and gotten some really good rates. And then they wanted to do a Blue Cross, and they just mentioned they were considering in talks with the hospital about becoming an HOPD. And I said, well, we're not going to do a Blue Cross contract until you decide. Because if you don't have an existing contract, that waiting for the step up in rates doesn't apply. So we waited, they did the deal, the HOPD, and came under the hospital and got a much higher reimbursement rate. So they're putting the MCOs are getting a little bit smarter, but putting some limitations in there. Okay, United Healthcare, they'll pay primary care physicians, they'll make additional payments for things like annual physicals, 6-month checkups for chronically ill patients. And every one of them's different, the incentives are different. So you need to negotiate the best rate you can and then say, do you have any bonus programs? You know, what can I get for additional payments? You know, what will you give me for that? And because that's just extra money on top of the best rate. But pretty much you're not getting better rates unless you're a market maker. Unless you dominate, you don't have to dominate the whole city if it's a large city, but you dominate one sector of the city and they can't do a contract without you, then you can get some leverage and get better rates. But I mean, like Blue Cross won't even do a group contract unless you have 50 physicians. So, you know, you got to be pretty significant to get better rates. Okay, bridges to excellence, and then the patient-centered medical homes, they're doing those. Bundle payments. Managed care companies are real big right now on bundle payments. You know, CMS, when the Trump administration came in, did away with the total joints and the bundle payments, but the managed care companies are forging ahead with the bundle payments. And that's where you bundle everything together. The surgeon, the anesthesiologist, the facility, the rehab afterwards, and all of that. And you get one payment. And that's what Georgia was talking about, where they're flying people all over the country for getting better outcomes. Johns Hopkins has a big program where they're doing with the National Co-op, where they're getting people from the West Coast come in there for a bundle package for doing this. And no, I'm way over. Okay, I was looking at my watch wrong. Thank you, Stan. And you have to be careful of this. Make sure you can manage it. And this just tells you a little bit about it. NCQA, ACOs, okay, HOPDs, and then this cartoon, laughter is the best medicine, so we're going to start regulating laughter. That's kind of the government's attitude toward this. So, I mean, the reimbursement on the private pay are all over the map. So just talk to your contractors, see what programs they offer, see what you can do to increase your reimbursement.